Welcome to the Billy Shultz Music Podcast.
Perfect.
All right, man. How are you?
I'm good. I want to get to know you.
Absolutely. Hey, well, we can talk about it all, my friend. But yeah, I started in 2017, and it was really just I knew I wanted to make content, and I wanted to try and do the YouTube thing. And I didn't know. I tried so many different things before even doing like a music channel. Like I tried to do like a 2-minute like news clips kind of thing. I tried everything, and but I really wanted to do something that I loved, and that was playing guitar. But I was like, I don't know what kind of content to make, and I was like, you know what? And it just hit me one day. I was like, I can just do tutorials to start, and that'll kind of get my foot in the door. I'll be able to. It's endless supply of content.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that like the first handful of videos that I started doing tutorials for, just didn't really have any decent quality tutorials for them out yet, and those songs started to blow up at the same time, and it was just like a perfect storm. Everything like came together.
Yeah, people are definitely eating your stuff up. So what do you like want to go toward as far as YouTube? Because this is something that I'm thinking about too. It's like I have all these content ideas, but you wrestle between like wanting to give the people what they want and wanting to do what you want. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And honestly, I have to attribute that to my success. Really, is that once the videos that I did have started getting traction, I just started listening to what the people who were commenting were asking for. I would look up every single song that was being requested, and if it was in the same genre, if it was a decently popular song that I thought everyone would want to learn, I would just do tutorials on those songs. And luckily it was in that same lane that nobody was really doing tutorials for at the time. And like my most popular video on the channel is Star Shopping by Little Peep. I never would have, even when I started the channel, I didn't even know that song at all, but it's because someone requested it, and luckily I did it, and now it's it's the most popular song. So it really was just like a perfect storm. And then the pandemic happened, and so everyone got shut inside, and my numbers skyrocketed because everyone's trying to learn guitar.
So were you like you went to music school, or are you that type of guy? Like,
no, I'm totally self-taught.
Okay, cool.
Which is a gift and a curse. I mean, it's cool to say, but I'm actually now starting to go back to school for guitar and to learn music. And I'm got a buddy of mine who is a killer guitar player who I'm going to try and have him start giving me some lessons. But because I'm at that level, you get to that point where you kind of plateau and you need something to kind of break you out of that box. That's where I feel like I'm at right now. So that's I'm just now getting to the point where, because when I was younger, it was like, go to school for music. That's not going to pay the bills. Exactly. I need to go for something like a real job, and then I can do this on the side. But now I'm to the point where I'm like, no, this could be a career for me. So I need to really, like own my craft and try and become somewhat of a professional.
Yeah, so we can definitely relate to each other, because I have my parents are lawyers, my brother's a doctor, and so it was never like, you should pursue your creative endeavors. Not that, parents have always been very supportive, but it's always been like, you should like get a good paying job where you don't have to worry about paying bills and stuff. So it's like, I'm in the same way. Like I'm teaching, trying to sell courses, and that's kind of what I want to do full time. But
Absolutely.
I guess like when you grow up thinking that you're going to have like a regular job and just do the thing, it's kind of like you're fighting your inner character,
100%. Yeah, it's that feeling of like, I'm not doing what I love, but I'm worried that if I try to pursue what I love to do, is that going to pay off for me in the long run? And you get to, you just get to a certain point where it's either you got to go all in or you got to give it up. Yeah,
I know. So when you have the answer, you let me know, because I still don't know.
100%. I'm sure I'll be looking for it for a long time. What about you, man? Did you go to school for music, or how did your whole journey start?
Yeah, man. Well, my dad really was always just spinning records in the house. Like, that's how it started. I didn't go to school for music. I went to school for math, actually, just like the regular kind of rigid structure that my brother was doing too. Um, I have a minor in music, but I don't really have any formal training. It was just a lot of like sitting in the dorm room with the slot on my finger and like not making friends and just like playing guitar instead.
Right.
Which, I wouldn't change for anything. I loved my college experience. I think those were the years where I really started getting good at guitar. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's when I was like, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to play guitar like for a living. But I just was so caught up in like my studies and stuff. It didn't hit me until after I graduated. And then a buddy who was on The Voice messaged me. He was like, "Hey, like, why don't you come try out? I want to get a little group together and start touring." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's do it. This is perfect timing. I just graduated." So I got that gig and I was doing that for 2 years, man. So I feel like I paid my dues on the road, and then that's when COVID hit. And then I started really hunkering down and trying to master my craft, and like, started teaching, made the YouTube channel, made the Instagram channel. And yeah, man, I've been really liking it. And that's the kind of stuff I want to keep doing. Like I really love teaching, and I really love, kind of trying to find things that people haven't done yet. That's my main thing,
For sure. You said a buddy of yours was on The Voice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his name is
it?
Dylan Hartigan.
Okay.
I will definitely give him a plug because he's a great artist, man. I mean, he's probably the best songwriter I've ever worked with.
What season was it? Do you remember?
Season 14.
Okay. I'll have to check him out because I'm a big Voice watcher. At least the most recent seasons, like when COVID hit,
Yeah, man.
I started finding all the shows. So I'll have to check him out. David Hartigan.
Dylan Hartigan. Yes. Yeah, so that was the cool thing from that gig. Then he got invited on Kelly Clarkson's tour, so we got to play a gig with her show in front of like 10,000 people, and that's when I was like, you're in that moment and you're like, oh shit, this is real. Like I'm doing music full time, because you play empty bar gigs, you play like 100 people gigs, and it's like back and forth between that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden you're in front of 10,000 people, and it's just like, you're like, I'm doing the thing, so that was like the real moment of clarity for me, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've played plenty of those where you're playing for nobody but the wait staff or the bartender, yeah. And then you get in front of a couple thousand people, and you're like, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah. It's all part of paying the dues, I guess, man. I don't have any of the answers. I don't want to act like I have any of the answers. I'm just taking it all in stride and just trying to do what makes me happy, to be honest with you. I know it's cliche, but
well, that's what you get to, it's like at the end of the day, you got to do what makes you happy and what makes you feel fulfilled, and
yeah.
When it comes to something like what we try to do, there are just so many lanes, especially now with the internet and with social media. It's so hard to really find not only the time and the energy to be consistent and to create the content you want to create, but also do it in a way that's going to make you stand out from everybody else.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why I really like Slide, because I feel that there's so much kind of uncharted territory. Like you see so many videos on YouTube of people teaching like the typical Duane Allman stuff, and all that stuff is great, man. I'm not shitting on anybody. That stuff needs to be out there and needs to be taught. And there are some really good teachers, but like for me, I feel that there's so much more after that. And there's not a lot of educational content on YouTube about this stuff. So that's where I kind of feel like, wow, I think I can provide value, and my students tell me this a lot, which makes me feel great. They're like, and like this, what you're doing, you can't really find anywhere. And that's what's so valuable about your teaching. So I kind of want to keep leaning into that, and just trying to come across things that new, like that feel fresh and new. Like you wouldn't think to play Slide over an R&B tune, but it works.
Absolutely.
It works, man. You could play Slide over a Bruno Mars tune and make it work. So that's the kind of stuff I'm just treading through new ground.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to ask you is what made you, made you gravitate towards the slide, because it seems like
Yeah.
that's kind of like your thing, right? Like you almost play like exclusively slide, at least from what I saw from your social media stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty much all slide, man. The question is like, what got me inspired by it? I have one very clear memory, and like my youngest memory is a 9/11 because I live like right outside New York.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like one of the first memories I remember. And the second one was listening to Derek Trucks in the car with my dad. It was like a live version of Layla with Eric Clapton. I think it was 2006. And I heard that and I was like, what is that? Like, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got a slide. My dad kind of taught me the basics. And then I just took it from there, man. Like listening to Allman Brothers records, like nonstop.
Yeah.
15 years,
Absolutely.
and playing along, and not even playing like I want to get somewhere. It's just like I want to jam and have fun, Right. It was never like sitting down and hunkering down and practicing certain things, which kind of makes me feel like a fraud in some ways. But it was really just jamming out and really trying to focus in on those little details with slide, because slide is all about the nuance, man.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably took me, I don't know, 7 years to get comfortable with my playing, like that I wasn't embarrassed of it.
Right.
But it was really just digging in, and really kind of listening to those details and listening to vocalists too, man.
Yeah.
So,
and it seems like, you can tell that for you, it kind of comes from a place of just sheer, just not only enjoyment, but it is just kind of what work, it's what you're drawn to.
Yeah.
You can kind of just tell that, even like, just like I said, checking out your social media, I was like, yeah, he must have just been infatuated with slide guitar from day one.
Yeah. Well, so what got you into playing? I'm always curious about this because everyone has a different story.
Absolutely. Honestly, I think I just wanted to be a rock star when I was younger. It was the typical, like, it'd be so cool and I was always into music, like when I was younger, I was much more of a singer back then. And I try and keep that up as much as I play guitar now too. But, I just grew up always in like chorus, or I was even in show choir for a little while when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like always something musical, and it just kind of like naturally gravitated towards guitar. And there, along the way, this after my parents got divorced, my mom started seeing a guy who was like a insane guitarist, and that kind of helped push me into that direction.
How old were you?
This was I think I was 13 at this time. So right at the perfect age, so where your mind is being molded.
Yeah.
And I went through the few years of like messing around with it, and when it first started, it's so frustrating because especially if you're not taking lessons, or you're trying to just learn it, and it's like a foreign language, So you pick it up and you put it down countless times, and luckily my best friend at the time was also interested in playing music, and he had started picking up the guitar too, and that just like slowly gravitated towards, we started a band which was shitty, terrible, and we ended up we ended up like doing the thing, playing out live, and all of our friends thought that we were dope, but looking back now, I'm like, I know that we sounded awful, but we were doing it, and that's what kind of kept me in it, is just that love of like being on stage. I think for me, it was never really just about guitar itself. It was more so about performing. I've always felt like I wanted to be on a stage and do something musically, and guitar just is what came natural after singing,
Right. It's the thing. Yeah. You said it right. It's like that establishing a connection with the audience, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't even have to be saying anything. You can just be playing. Mm-hmm. You can feel that connection, and that's a really good point. I haven't played live in so long that I've almost forgotten that feeling, which is sad.
Dude, me too. And that's like, I've been obviously with COVID, but even before that, I just moved to LA 2 years before COVID started, and I was honestly just trying to get myself established, and I had been a part of so many bands prior that I was slightly jaded. I was like, I'm not going to know anybody out here, and it's hard to like take the time to meet a new group. And are we all on the same page? Do I want to try and do a new like original thing with guys I don't know yet? And like, and I eventually just started just writing my own stuff while trying to like get my life together when I moved here.
Right.
And then COVID hit, and then now ever since then it's just been like trying to focus on the YouTube channel and my full-time job outside of that too. So I'm the same way. It's been so long since I've actually played live on a stage, and it's the more time that passes by, I'm like itching to get back,
Yeah. So you do want to like join a band or make your own band and hit the road?
Man, it's hard to say because I've got, with the YouTube channel, I have something really good going here, and I want want to continue providing, the content and the value for the YouTube channel while also becoming a better guitarist myself. And that's the why I'm leaning, that's why I'm looking to go back to school or find a teacher or really like start digging into to take my playing to the next level. And I guess like I'm hoping along the way that'll naturally lead into I got a buddy who he's playing a live gig here in LA, he needs a guitarist to fill in. I don't know if I'm necessarily looking for a group. I'm not opposed to join a group, but it would have to be something like a group is already kind of together, they need a guitarist, I either find them or they find me, and it just kind of fits and works, and that rarely ever happens. So
yeah, it's funny, I'm like, I feel almost the same exact way. Like it would take a little bit of a perfect financial
scenario.
Kind of motivation to like to drop everything or something I'm really, really passionate about, like a project that I hear and I'm like, wow, I want to be a part of this, for the same reasons. It's like I love kind of what I'm doing now, and like you get into a groove at home, man. I've made more progress in the last 2 years during the pandemic than I have in like my almost 10 years of playing.
Well, it's because you finally had that time to sit down and really focus on what you love to do, And I think that's what a lot of people figured out during the pandemic is a lot of people found like, oh wow, I'm really passionate about this, or when I have more time to do this, I feel much more fulfilled. And it's a blessing and a curse for a lot of people, for sure.
Yeah, that's the truth, man. Like even when I was ready, like right before the pandemic, like I was so kind of burnt from being on the road all the time, and like kind of wanted to hunker down and just go back to just playing in the basement with a record, and like that's what made me happy originally. So that was the blessing and curse of the pandemic for me.
Sure. Well, and it's it is the dream to be able to be on the road and play play the shows and travel, and it seems like the dream, but if it's not the right setup, you can burn out really, really quickly. Because I did that with the band for just 6 months. We traveled the whole country and played a bunch of shows. Some were big, some were nobody was there. And when there isn't that financial stability, you do start to think like, oh man, like I don't have the income coming in. Like do I need to start rethinking what I'm doing here? Like as much as I love this, it's not going to pay the bills, and that's the double-edged sword,
It's way too real of a feeling, like when you say that. It's like a visceral reaction for me. So I get it, man. I get it.
Well, because you also have that the angel on your shoulder saying, this is what you love to do, and like you are paying your dues, and you just got to keep putting in the time and the effort. And then you got the devil saying, look, you don't know when this is going to pay off, like it's fun and it's great right now, but it's not working all the way yet. So yeah, I know exactly that feeling for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's why you just kind of keep moving. You keep driving the ship keep sailing the same ship that you're on right now.
There it is.
I feel the same way. That's so funny.
I did want to ask you, because I'm not super familiar with the slide world. I know Allman, but you said you're trying to show people more of Derek Trucker.
Derek Trucks. Yeah.
Derek Trucks. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about just like the difference and why you like lean more towards him, and explain to me that whole aspect of it.
Yeah. So I can kind of play and show you too. I think that would be
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome.
I'm all queued up and ready to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
So I think the really interesting thing was what Derek did with Duane's lines. Like he kind of extended them. So if you know the Allman Brothers kind of stuff, you hear a lot of Duane's licks being these in between two frets kind of things, an open tuning. So he'll play things like this. Stuff like that. And that's super cool. Like I love that stuff. But the thing that I hear Derek doing is like he took that and instead of playing between just two frets, he extended it across the whole fretboard.
Okay.
Right. So that's and I should say, like, Duane started doing this in recordings like Dreams. Like he would actually go kind of out of just the home bass fret, which is what I like to call it. Because in open tuning, like every fret is a chord. So
right.
Key of D, there you go. Every note is right on the 10th fret.
Uh-huh.
So what you have with this kind of Derek approach is you extend these same kind of blues lines like throughout the entire fretboard. So just to demonstrate, you can have things like so instead of just keeping things between two frets, now I'm going all the way from like the first fret to the 15th fret there.
Right.
And you're playing the same notes, but you're approaching them differently. So you have all these little nuances, right? You can do a similar thing in that kind of Duane Allman box. You kind of get a different quality when you take things outside. So the point is like, you can really explore, and Derek really started exploring outside of like the usual Duane Allman licks, the usual blues licks. And that's what really drew me to it. And like, from what I hear, will come up for now. Like he is like the guy who did it. Like I can't think of anyone else who's taken things that outside of like the traditional slide playing stuff. Because is that traditional? Is it's kept in between 2 to 3 frets, like in a very narrow box? Because I'm that's way outside of my area of understanding. Yeah. So if you like listen to all those Elmore James, Muddy Waters records, like those old blues records, a lot of it's like in E, like we're in open E, in the key of E. You'll get all this stuff around the 12th fret, and then some stuff. It's a lot of that stuff, but not a lot in between the octaves. So there's so many notes in between the octaves,
right,
that you can use, but traditionally, at least to my ear, someone may correct me, someone may argue otherwise, but traditionally it's mostly been that. And I'm not taking anything away from that. I love that music. I love Muddy Waters. I love Elmore James. Those are like two of my biggest influences. But when the question is like how to take things a little further, it's really, you got to explore the places in between those two home bass octaves is what I like to call them. So hopefully that isn't too confused. Like it makes at least a little bit of sense. It
definitely, yeah. I mean, I definitely have an idea of essentially you're saying that you're inspired by Derek Trucks, right? Mm-hmm. Because he took the traditional style of playing, which kind of kept it inside of a kind of like a box 1 to 2 frets,
Yeah,
two,
yeah, absolutely.
and started more, which like as musicians typically do, just started experimenting more with, how about I open it up and take it across multiple frets and use multiple notes inside of the key that we're in to really
Yep,
make something that sounds new and
yep,
fresh kind of deal.
exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly. And I should say too, like as guitar players, I think we can rely too heavily on those traditional boxes, right? Just
Hmm.
vertically moving up and down the fretboard. Um, and what's kind of been groundbreaking for me is really approaching the guitar more horizontally, like across the fretboard rather than up and down.
Right.
It just makes more sense to me because like moving up a scale horizontally, and I'll just tell me if this is too much.
No,
But
I'm this is awesome. I'm loving it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, have
but
at it.
okay, cool. So just moving up a scale horizontally makes more sense to me because all the distances between the notes are more clear than if you're going vertically. Like,
Hmm.
so if I just go, I can clearly see, okay, full step, half step, full step, full
Right.
step,
All
full
your
step.
intervals are easily seen.
Yeah, but especially when I started playing guitar, it wasn't clear. Like if I move up the same scale mostly vertically, once I switch strings, the distance between this note and the next note a string down is not clear to me.
It's not as clear. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely, you're switching strings, so you're like, it's very easy to get lost and say, wait, is this my half step? Is this my whole step?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And then that kind of always forced me to just like rely on licks, rather than like singing more, like singing with the guitar, because
Mhm.
we can kind of run into these kind of just patterns.
Yeah.
But when I started approaching things more horizontally, like I feel more like a vocalist, so I can kind of sing a line. Ba-da-boom-boom. Right, and that kind of always made more sense to me than just kind of learning patterns, right?
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm connecting it to, because like I said, I'm digging deeper into the theory and everything, and so it's funny. I'm able to connect, just what I've been learning and practicing with what you're saying, and it helps me see it the way that you're seeing it.
Yeah.
And it does make sense. I mean, it is much easier to be able to tell, what your intervals are on a single string rather than when you're trying to move across, move vertically up and down the strings.
Yeah.
So I can see why that, especially playing slide, why that would be much easier to gravitate towards. And then I can also see why you would gravitate towards that style of playing as well, because that's kind of what you're doing by using the entire neck, right? Is you're playing your scales down single strings.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, that's perfect. And that it just was always more clear that way. And like I could hear singers sing, and then that also would motivate, that would inspire me too, because I could hear a singer heavy vibrato versus like no vibrato, just like kind of hitting a note head on, and I could hear all that, right? And it finally made sense when I looked at things horizontally. Sorry, it's like you hear lines all the time, like with singers. Like that's very vocal like, rather than the that isn't
that'd be a little difficult to sing.
yeah, exactly. So
so is this what you're, because I saw that you have the course that you're offering. Is this kind of what you jump, because we're running up against the time a little bit here. Zoom's going to kick me off. Zoom's going to kick me off here. But I wanted to talk just quickly about your course. Is this what you dig into with the course that you offer?
Yeah. So the one I have out now is just like 50 licks in the style of Duane Allman and Derek Trucks. And they're probably more focused around that vocal kind of quality of Derek, because that's what really moves me. And the course I'm writing now is really just like fundamentals of slide guitar, how I would have wanted to learn. Like if I could start over and learn a certain way, it would be this way.
Okay.
You know, so really focusing on the techniques that are going to allow you to do these kind of more difficult vocal runs and things like that. And like I feel like if you can play these really kind of horizontal lines, the vertical lines aren't as bad. Some people may disagree with that, but that second course is going to be all just kind of giving you the techniques, really focusing on the nuances to put, you know, to really get that vocal style onto guitar. You know what I mean?
And so this is another course that you're creating, or it's a course that is already available?
So the second one is one that I'm writing right now. I don't have a date for it yet, because I really want to make sure it's, you know, everything is written perfectly. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I don't want to cut any corners with it. And again, like I said before, man, like I want to do stuff that you can't really find, you know? Like I want to kind of leave this world and be like, wow, okay, I did something that I could say like no one really kind of offered before me, you know?
Absolutely.
And I don't mean it in like a pretentious way. I mean it just like that's a fulfilling for me, you know?
Well, and that's, you know, I think just as musicians, as artists, and as creatives, you know, that's kind of what we do, right? Is we like to create things that will last beyond us and will hopefully make people feel the way that it makes us feel, you know?
Right.
So I don't think it's pretentious at all. I just think that's kind of the name of the game, you know?
Yeah, well, thanks for that.
No worries, man. Absolutely. But I do think you have, you have an awesome, you do have, I think, your own lane. I mean, as much as I've, you know, because I dig into the guitar world on YouTube quite a bit, you know, to compare and look for new video ideas and learn. And I haven't seen anybody who's in that lane as far as like, you know, just focusing solely on slide guitar. And
Thanks,
I mean, I think you got a really cool thing going. And I think if you did like you're doing already, the way you're buckling down and just constantly creating, I think you really could do something with it.
Thanks, man. The same goes back to you.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I didn't want that to sound pretentious either, because at the end of the day, I don't know anything, but I'm just like, I haven't seen anybody else who does the slide thing like you do.
Yeah, I guess I could, you know, because there are guys who I really got to give credit. And I think current players, right? Because we all talk about like, and I know we're coming up against the time. We got like 5 minutes left.
Does it give you that notification too?
I didn't get the notification, but I see that we have 5 minutes left. It's
got the clock. Okay, cool. Yeah.
You know, because I feel like we like to talk about the influences of the past. You know, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Duane Allman, all these guys. But like, there's so many amazing current players. You know, like I think people need to talk about it more. Like, I'm gonna tie this back to what you said. Like, I gotta give credit to like Johnny Statula. He's playing with the Allman Betts band and Dwayne Betts, and he's like killing it. He's been hugely inspirational for me, like as far as slide playing. But like I want to shout out other guys too, like Charlie Allen, hugely inspirational for me. He's more like he full on jazz, you know, amazing player, R&B, jazz R&B kind of guy. Like Lenny Dellison, like another guy who's hugely inspirational to me. I don't want to leave anyone out, but those are the three I'm thinking of, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, do you notice that too? Like there's so many guys now who you could draw inspiration from.
Well, yeah. And I mean, there's so many guys now who have that avenue. They have that lane where they're, you know, because before you'd hear about the guys who were they were in the famous bands that, you know, like you're going to kind of be challenged not to know who they are. But now it's like so many guys just have a lane that they, you know, there can be one of the greatest guitar players in the world who hardly anybody knows of, but he's got 1 million subscribers on YouTube. You know, that's like the world we live in now. So 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's so many guys that definitely deserve more credit that are around right now just doing incredible things. And I think you could be one of those guys, man. I think with the slide thing, bro, you got a cool thing going on.
It means the world to me, man. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely, brother. Do you want to shout out any of your socials, your website, any of that stuff before we wrap it up? Sure.
It's just Dan Toppo Music. You can find me kind of on the usual places: Instagram, YouTube. Instagram and YouTube are kind of the two big ones. But yeah, man, thanks so much for having me. Like,
Hey, no
really
worries,
enjoyed
man.
sitting down and chatting.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, and I'll probably hit you up to do it again sometime soon. Because, like I said,
I'd love to.
It was awesome chatting with you, and I'm gonna keep up with you and watch the progression and see where you take it from there.
Likewise, brother.
All right, man. I appreciate you.
All right, we'll call it here.
Yes, sir.